room.
As
Well-
you wish.
Everyone can hear you now. What's going on, folks? How's everyone doing today?
Bad. No. I didn't know if you were talking to us or chat.
Both. Everybody.
Okay.
I don't have a
Just
single
woke up.
green. I don't have a single green M&M in my vicinity, and this is not what I agreed to.
You guys got a writer?
All right, let me move everything over to the other template. I'll make sure Wazy gets her green M&Ms in the wrap-up party after the show.
How
what I
kind
demand.
and benevolent.
I know.
What's happening, Rira, Pinecone, Naked Snake?
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
What's
folks.
up,
Coffee.
crew?
All right, so we are going to be going through all of the hard work that primarily Wazy, and I have done over the last few months.
Well, I
Also-
couldn't have done the hard work had you not done the hard work in the first part.
Hey, Sour Lad, how's it going? And right away, Small Raku. Okay, I have the rest of the of the complex redeems turned off. I actually remember to do it this time.
Good job.
Look at Raku being a professional and shit.
Well, I had them turned off when I streamed at Matt, so I already had done the work ahead of time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Never mind. I take back my compliments. I take them back. I apologize.
And 2 swear timers from Snake, so we'll just overlap them with the one that I have on now.
Oh no! Wait, is that swear timer plus? Like I don't gotta swear or what?
My swear timers apply to everybody.
Oh.
You're a monster.
Well,
I didn't think about that. Maybe I should change the
This is-
cooldown just for this stream, or we're gonna see nothing but swear timers because Wazy's here. Let me fix
This
that.
is
That
illegal.
is true.
Normally it wouldn't be an issue, but because she's here.
Whoa, 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 whoa! If I was given green M&Ms like I asked for, maybe I wouldn't cause a problem. Ever think of that?
Wasn't in your contract.
Damn it!
Ding dang.
All right, cooldown time. We're gonna say 30 minutes. I remember to turn that off at some point. There was no cooldown.
Snake, I'm a
Oh,
good
10
little guy.
10 minutes. All right, change it to 30, so we should be good.
good.
Okay, so here's how this is gonna work, folks. What I have here, I had to improvise at the last minute, but we're going to be watching the animation for The Lost Kingdom, which is my latest music project that is actually live right now. It went live technically yesterday on streaming services, Spotify, Tidal, and also on Bandcamp. After the stream today, this video we're going to watch, it will be live on YouTube, just on its own. I'm going to put up the VOD of this stream too so people can hear the commentary, but the uncommentary versions, the regular full animation will be up there on its own, so anyone who wants to watch it or who misses the stream can see it there too.
You can watch it right now,
Well, it's
live.
well, you can watch it
Right
now with
now.
us, yes.
Yeah, right now.
Hey, first time
Now.
chat from X Ace. What's up, Ace?
Hello.
Oh, hey, Ace.
How you doing? Welcome to the
Hello,
stream.
Ace.
Morning. Morning, Ace.
And so the way I was planning to do this, I talked to Wazy. What we have here is 20 animated scenes for 20 songs in the release. And what we're going to do is we're going to play each song, and then I'm just going to pause the video for it. We go to the next one, and then Wazy and I and anyone else who's here on the call with Matt and Pwups, we'll just talk a little bit about the track, kind of some behind the scenes stuff from the animation and music side, and answer any questions that may come up from the chat. And then we'll go to the next one, and we'll do that in sequence. There's 20 of them, so get yourself some popcorn and strap in, because
It's movie time.
it's essentially movie time with stream chat. And so,
Get your blinks in.
without further
Blink,
ado,
blink, 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 blink.
Moisturize your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Shove lubrication jelly directly in your eye socket.
No.
so I'm gonna
Who knows?
play
you
the
might like
intro
it.
here, and chat, tell me if you have any issues hearing the audio. If I ever do this again, I'm gonna have to set up a different audio source for browser stuff. But because
Girl,
I couldn't
unmute
get
it
my
and listen.
Was that Wazy?
I said I'll unmute it and listen, but then I unmuted it and I heard too many voices and I got scared.
Yeah, I'm not planning on saying anything while it's playing, so we can just watch it and then after I pause it, then we can get back and talk about it. So let's see. I will start playing it and then we will get rolling. So this is the Lost Kingdom, a collaboration between myself and the Toxicure Enterprise. So let's go. Okay. So that is the first song, Misty Valley. So I'll just go back one so we can pause here and while we talk about it. And so this is kind of the opening of the entire release. It's supposed to be kind of like the first theme you would hear if this was a video game. And interestingly enough, talking about kind of the process, Most of the tracks, in fact, I think all, Wazi could probably attest to this too. All of the tracks are basically the theme and it repeats. So there's one
Yeah,
half and a
everything
second
loops.
half. Everything loops. This one is the only one that doesn't do that. This is one continuous take through the whole thing, and different parts you can hear the instruments kind of change and drop in and out. But Misty Valley is the only one that doesn't repeat. It's just one continuous shot the whole way, and then it changes slightly from start to finish. And so
What was the reason for that, Raku?
well, you probably remember Wazi early on. There's a different version of the song I made that was, I think, just a double repeated one, but it had audio issues. And
Yep.
I had to lean on Wazi to give me feedback since she works in content creation and she can hear things on audio. And so she let me know for a bunch of tracks we can kind of see as they come up. But I had to go back and redo some of them. And so that means I had to record them all from scratch using my instruments. And so for this one, I went back and I just changed the structure. Since I had to do it all from scratch anyway, I said I'm going to do a continuous song instead of it being a loop. And so that was kind of how that happened, but it's the only track like that in the entire release. And so, like people are noticing in the chat, the vibe of Lost Kingdom is kind of like an old school SNES RPG. It's the aesthetic that we were going for here. And so what we had done, I had designed prototypes for all of the characters you're going to see. There's 6 of them in total. We'll see 2 more in the next scene. But these characters are all modeled after our mutual friend group online. And we'll get their names at the very end in the credits. But this first one here, see my cursor, this is Mattias the Crimson, based on none other than Red Shirt Guy, Mr. Matt.
It's me.
I like that name. I like
so
that name.
the design, Raku, of course, he designed almost all of these characters. And he sent them to me in a very pixelated form, and I had to bring them basically to look like us, but not so much like us. So like with Matt, he was like, me and Raku talked about it. He's our quote unquote protagonist of the game. And so I kind of gave him Dragon Ball Z inspired hair because, like, to me that felt more appropriate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the color scheme and everything was all designed by Raku. I just took what he gave me and I kind of refined it and made it easier to animate, and then kind of gave it some touch ups.
So Matt's class is a warrior or fighter. And I had pulled a bunch of our friends way back before I even started working on this, without any context, asking about, if you were a D&D character, what would your class be? And that's what we used to develop the characters you're going to see in this animation. Our second character here is a sort of swamp mage, and this is Sogrius Murkwater, who is inspired by none other than Soggy Froggy.
Yeah, and the only character design I changed for him, taking him from Raku's original design to animation, is I gave him feet. Because in Raku's version, he gave him boots, but I was like, everybody's wearing boots, so he needs to stand out a little bit. So I gave him weird little froggy feet.
As you should.
And I think it works better.
Yeah. I had no idea, because what Raku gave me was pixel designs, and Raku, I assume you're going to be releasing the original pixel versions?
I might
At
not,
some point?
because I don't have a pixel version of your final character.
Well, yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But that design that's on his shirt, that is my best guess at whatever the fuck it was Raku was trying to put on there. I have no idea.
Technically, I should have restarted the swear timer. Oh, well, you get a free pass and
How
starting
dare
over
you?
now.
How dare you? Listen! Fuck you!
All right, I restarted again.
That's petty.
Yeah, I know, right? God.
Wazi knew what she was signing up for.
No, I didn't. I didn't know we had to be on swear timer.
Oh, yeah, people are going to start throwing your they swore emotes in
How
chat.
dare you, Ace? How
Don't-
dare you?
Keep
Don't
Wazi
narc
honest,
here.
folks.
How? No, no. Don't narc. Listen, no narking rules extend to Raku's channel.
That is not true. You can narc all you want. This is a narc-friendly environment.
Oh
Oh,
my god.
I hate it here.
Okay, next up in the lineup, we have another mage designed more like a summoner type mage, and this is Ponk Gremlin Bane right here.
And the pointed shoes were again 100% in the original character design, and I couldn't not keep the pointed shoes. The only thing I changed was the look of the staff and the fact that the bow on the head is up higher on the hat
Right.
than normal.
So this character, if you couldn't tell, was based off of Pwups. And
It's very subtle. It's so subtle.
Yeah, you totally can't tell. It's so vague.
Mhm.
the real question is for Ponk Gremlin Bane, are they a gremlin that's the bane of everybody else, or are they the bane of gremlins? That is for you to decide in your own headcanon.
Mm.
This one wasn't too difficult to design since all I had to do was take Pwups' normal design, kind of similar to what you're seeing on their avatar here on the stream, and creating a mage.
And put a hat. You just
Yeah,
went,
give me a
Paul,
big ol' hat.
give him a big old hat.
Well, you can't be a wizard without a big hat.
I like the idea that the horns, because this character is supposed to be like a tiefling. I like the idea that the horns are anchoring the hat to their head so it doesn't fly off.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, that would actually make perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the animations on this one too. We'll see later. One of my favorite scenes is going to be towards the later part. And our final character here, this is Wazy Quickfoot. And she's a ranger class.
This was the hardest part because this looks nothing like the design Raku gave me. The only thing I took from the original Raku design is that she has an axe and her color scheme. Other than that, we had a hard fucking time with this because I kept changing how this character should look.
There you go again.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where it's like it didn't fit the theme of the party, and I was like, we need to change it. And so
No,
at some point,
I meant I'm resetting the clock. Keep going.
oh, fuck you.
All right, set the clock again.
I think it was Raku who said she should have a bunny hood. And I was like, I hate it, but I'll do it. And so I did it. And like the original Wazy has like a more red mage kind of outlook to her, but we don't have a lot of physical fighters in the party, as you'll see the rest of the party members.
Yeah, and
so
so Wazy's correct. And when I originally pulled all of the people I was gonna be modeling characters after for the project, originally she told me she'd be a bard. And so the original design I had come up with was kind of like a bard character wearing like a fancy hat. But we already have another bard, which we'll see in the next scene. And so Wazy said, I'll just redesign the character. And then said, okay, we could do like a ranger class. And taking the lore of, the Toxicure brand, I thought it'd be funny if she was wearing like a bunny hood because in canon, maybe she had some sort of great epic battle with a rabbit and came out victorious and is now wearing its pelt. And it's a pretty cute design. I like the way it turned out. It's pretty distinct. So good job, Wazy.
yeah.
It's super cute.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Crutcher says a dire bunny. Yeah, it was a demon,
Yeah.
a demon rabbit
That's
or a
exactly
dire
what
bunny.
happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's move on to the next scene. And the uploaded video will have timestamps for all the tracks so people can jump to different ones since it's such a long video. You can see
I
that.
love when videos do that. Very helpful.
Okay, so this is track 2, World of Adventure.
Yeah.
And so this one was designed to be like the overworld theme. When you're set into the world of this particular universe and you're out there trying to figure stuff out, the first overworld theme is what you hear here. And what you'll see in each video is the lineup of party members of 4 is going to switch up every scene with a couple exceptions. And so there'll always be a different sort of lineup of the 6 characters we've seen so far. Also, Ace, I did see that you followed when we were back at the beginning, so thank you for the follow and welcome.
There is a couple of surprises. There is 2 hidden characters and 1 original character still in the cast to show up.
Yep,
But
yep, and we'll see them in short order.
oh, technically 3. Sorry,
And so the new part,
3 secret characters and 1 original.
yes, there are some little Easter eggs in here that we'll see coming up. And so 2 new party members. We have a bard right here, and this is Ramo Tonkotsu, and he is like a noodle man, modeled after our friend TGI Ramen. And this was an interesting one to design. When I asked Ramen what his class would be, he said bard, and he said he would probably use a trombone. And so I said, okay, I can design kind of like a robed bard character, and then the sort of dreadlock design, keeping with his character, sort of evolved from there. And then Wazy threw in the chopsticks, which I think is an awesome touch. That was a really good idea, Wazy.
Also, I gave him noodle fingers in the
Yeah.
original thing. He just had like regular human hands, and I was like, nah, this is spaghetti.
And that was also pretty funny. And I said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. The lore, it would be interesting to see, was he like some sort of homunculus or from another dimension?
I think he was a wizard spell gone wrong. I think somebody was eating a bowl of noodles in a bar, and some unlucky mage cast a spell, and it rebounded off pots and like did that whole thing, and then hit this bowl of noodles, and it became sentient.
I think that's pretty good. I think it'd also be funny if there's just a race in this universe that's sentient noodle people.
Just noodle guys.
Yeah, if you can have sentient fungus, you can have sentient noodles.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
But yeah, this design's pretty fun. And we'll see some interesting stuff with Ramo as we go forward. And then our other new party member here, this is Sir Causticus Bloomblight. I had to change the name at the end. I said Bloomblight, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Bloomblight.
And he is an alchemist. And the whole setup here, like a plague doctor type outfit. This character was inspired by Bits Blight. And so Causticus is kind of a unique hybrid class. I don't know if it actually exists in traditional RPGs, but he is an alchemist. And some people pointed out the bird-shaped bottles, which I'm glad people picked up on that because I specifically wanted to make sure thematically that the bird bottles were there. Kind of a fun touch.
Yes, I know, because I had to redo them. I did them originally with a regular bottle. And Raku was like, "You're not going to add the bird bottle?" And I was like, "Oh, fine." And so I went back and did it.
Coffee asks, I think this is for Ramen's design. Are there eye holes in the bowl? Can you see? Oh, yeah, he's got eyes. He's just wearing sunglasses. Don't think too hard about it.
Also, if you guys watch, not to toot my own horn, but Bits's loop, like, because as you see all the characters loop, Bits's is my favorite idle loop. Just the whole throwing of the bottle and catching it and then stopping and looking at it. That is my favorite loop out of all of the characters.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice touch. And Snake asks, "What do the potions do?" You will have to
you'll
wait.
see.
You have to wait and see, my friend. That will be coming up later. But yeah, I really like the way Causticus's design came out, and the way he animates is pretty fun.
Other than that, the design from Raku's original is pretty much the same. The only difference is I took away one of the colors for the boots, and I added ruffles on the sleeves.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. I lifted the color palette from Bits' avatar directly.
Sense.
And other than that, on I'm sorry, what was that, Pwups?
Yoink. You know, you stole them colors. Yoink.
Yeah, you like the colors.
It is worth noting, like Wazy was mentioning in the chat while we were playing the scene, this layout is not too complicated. I like the scrolling of the background, kind of like, an overworld scrolling tile set, but the castle is easily the most intricate part of what she created.
Please praise my castle. I worked so hard on that castle. It shows, you'll see it a lot. This background comes up a lot. I worked so hard on that, and I was so proud of it when it was done. I was like, he better like this fucking castle.
Your castle is so dope, Wazy. Good
I
job.
know. I
The
hate
ca-
backgrounds. For somebody who hates backgrounds.
Yeah.
You sure did a dang good job.
It is a good castle, and we will see it in future scenes, so don't worry.
Yeah.
And we got
Like
two
the
hydrates and a
and
stretch redeemed from
oh, yeah, I
chat.
should hydrate and stretch.
Oh,
Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna know kind of like the tonal like go from the first track to the second track as well as like kind of like the mood of the animation. Kind of the first track kind of gave me this feel of like the waking up in the forest at the start of like Secret of Mana, where it's you're waking up there, the forest is kind of like mellow at first, and then coming out into this big overworld where it's not like you're not going on like the grandest adventure. You're going on an adventure, but it's an adventure of like it's not a world in peril, or at least it doesn't feel like a world in peril. It feels more adventure for the sake of adventure, not for like a grand like an overly grand quest, a reasonable quest, essentially.
Let me just say that of all the tracks that I wrote, since I didn't write these all at the same time, I had them done kind of in sequence, and then as I started working with Wazy, I had to go back and redo some because of audio issues. The ones that gave me the most trouble from just a writing and composition standpoint were the overworld themes. There's two. We'll see another one later on. All the other ones were done, but I scrapped and redid the overworld tracks at least 2 or 3 times before I even had a version to show Wazy. And then I had to go back and redo for audio issues, but I just kind of knew what I was going to do at that point. It took me that long to get an overall theme I liked. And so if I ever do a sequel project to this, I'm doing those first because I wanted to kind of capture the feel. Matt, you probably know. I wanted like an FF6 Terra's theme kind of vibe, but not rip off Terra's theme. And having kind of like a march type tempo, like a Breath of Fire theme was sort of what I was going for, but it for some reason creating that just took a lot more time for those. A lot of the other themes came together much faster.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely feel like the Terra theme, kind of like where it it's a world that feels quieter at first glance, kind of thing.
Snake asks, so are you guys real-time combat or turn-based? In this world, it would be turn-based. And we will see that in action later. But yeah, for something that I was designing here, going for like that old school SNES JRPG feel, it would be turn-based. All right, we can move on to the next one. Okay, so this is track number 3, Deep Dark Depths. Whoop. And so I'll see.
Really like this one for its composition. Like I like the different elements that were in this song because it made it much more fun to play with.
Yeah, and so the theme here would be like your first dungeon theme. The party being sent down for like a early level quest to go explore some sort of rocky dungeon type environment. And so this would be the theme that you hear. And to Wazy's point, one thing that she did really well throughout the entire project, and I didn't necessarily ask her to do this, I think she just picked up on it when she did the animations. She took the musical cues and when things change in the songs and tied a lot of the animation changes or things in the scene to when the music changes. And so like when the chorus, the kind of choiry synth chorus comes in, then you see the ghost pop in while that part's playing. When that drops out and then you have the little violin riff that comes and goes. Then the slime sort of creeps into the frame while that's playing and then creeps out. And people noticed it in chat and Wazy mentioned it. The slime was inspired by professional mod Sour Lad. And so he's officially got a cameo here in the Lost Kingdom animation, which is a fun
It,
touch.
it
Nope.
was one of those things where like I was listening to the song and I was kind of like envisioning how the scene would play out. I was like, "Oh, I really like this string part. It would be cool if there was like a little monster that just like crept in but then stopped and then it would easily as the characters moved on it got out of frame because that just kind of like it sound you made it sound like the way a monster would move, like the way the strings come in and then stop for a second and then go doodaloo
It's got
doodaloo like it,
like a creeping rhythm to it.
yeah, so I was like, oh, I gotta do it. I could do a slime in there. That's really easy to animate. And then while I was starting to like draw it, I was like, oh my god, if I make it yellow, it could be like Sour Lad, because Sour Lad's a mod for not only me but also Raku. So you know what? I should throw some Sour Lad rep in there and make it a little like because he's really round, so it was easy.
Yeah, it was a good touch. And I think you told me when you were working on it that you were going to do that. Or maybe you told me after you sent it over.
I told it after because you were like, oh, I like the slime, and I was like, it's Sour Lad, and you're like, oh my god, it is.
Yeah, it's a neat touch. And so this is one of the only times we have the party running. I think you only use these animations here and then in one other scene.
I think so.
Yeah, but I like the infinitely scrolling background with the torches. It's pretty simple, but kind of.
What were you going to say, Pwups? I think I cut you off there.
Oh, it's okay. I was just gonna say, I think this is my favorite track so far. I really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I
this
like the
one-
composition of this one.
Yeah, if I were to kind of I like, and I'm listening to these like tributing to JRPGs and like 16-bit style RPGs that I've played in the past, and this one gives off big Octopath Traveler vibes, especially a lot of the big cave areas that exist in that game. It gives a lot of those vibes to me.
Oh, okay. I haven't played Octopath, but I know the aesthetic and kind of vibe of that game. It's supposed to be really old school, right?
Yeah, it's like a 2.5D, but all 16-bit. It's like this definitely gives off the vibe that a lot of the like cave dungeons in that one do.
Ah, I gotcha. Hey, Bits is here. What's up, Bits? Welcome to the stream.
It's you.
Yeah, since
You.
you just joined, the character
Okay.
that was inspired by you is Sir Causticus Bloomblight right here, and he is an alchemist. And we'll see what he's about a little bit later.
And to answer Snake's question, I think we did. Raku did come up with a name for the slime. I just can't remember if he did or not.
I thought we just said sour slime. We'll have to see in the credits.
Slimer Lad or something like that. I can't remember.
The
But
shout
yeah,
out.
this one was like this is when I really got excited about the project was playing with Deep Dark Depths because this was when like the first two songs I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this, and then this one I really got to actually play around with, and so this was the really fun, like this was the kickoff for me for animation because this one I got to actually play with the music that Raku had made. So
Yeah, yeah, and we'll see more. The interesting thing about the way the kind of progression of tracks goes and the animations, They start off relatively simple, and then we start getting into like the next scene specifically, which I'm not going to give away before we go into it. We start to see the formula switch up a little bit, and the complexity sort of changes because like in the beginning you have almost two back-to-back scenes with the characters just kind of in idle pose and music plays, but things will sort of evolve as it goes, and by the end of the thing the complexity is kind of ratcheted up, which I didn't plan that, but it turned out really well. So we can move on to the next one. Yeah, we'll just let it transition over. All right. So that is was this track 4? One, two.
Yes.
This was Rivals Clash, and this one was designed to be a battle theme, which I'm sure is obvious from the tone and then the scene. This would be like any random encounter, party gets into a fight. This is the battle theme you'd hear, and this scene introduces the rival character, who we'll refer to as Rival for the time being. And so the whole setup behind this is a 1v1. This is the first solo scene of the party, and this is Matt squaring off against Rival. And I can let Wazy talk through kind of what she was thinking about for the animation, but this one was fun. I had shown off early versions of this song on the jam streams a couple times, but the version you hear on this final scene is one I had to re-record because of the audio issues I talked about before. But I'm happy with the way it turned out. And so on the animation side, what you got, Wazy?
So yeah, this was a really fun one. I really like the drums in this one. But when I was talking to Raku about it, and I was like, obviously this is a fight scene. So we hadn't quite made it this whole big overarching story yet, but in my mind I was like starting to formulate it. And I was like, oh, obviously I know who the bad guy's gonna be. I'll make this a 1v1 fight against like the rival, like the villain of the story. So again, the rival was designed by me, and you'll see more of him as the story kind of goes along. So this one, if you watch carefully, I don't really have like a class or anything for rival or anything. You can possibly maybe guess who it is, but you'll see later.
Yeah, I'd like chat to make their guesses either on their own, or you could put them in chat too. And then by the end, we'll see if you're right.
We'll see. And
Chat's already been making some guesses.
Yeah,
me
at
and
least
Pwups,
Snake has.
we'll talk about it at the end.
Yeah, we won't confirm or deny, but make your guesses and we'll see if you're right.
I really liked him using fire, and so when I was trying to figure out how to close this fight, I have, as you see, the rival gets mad near the midway point when Matt powers up and like fucking like at first Matt's just doing little dinky damage, like barely hitting him, and then Matt powers up and hits him good, and then Matt actually starts doing damage, and you'll see the rival's flame switches from red to blue.
Yep.
And that's kind of like a call to Azula. Because I made the rival then switch from red fire to blue fire, and he gets real mad. And if you look right before the end, he misses an attack on Matt because he's angry and blinded by rage, misses, and then he flees because he's mad. So that's kind of was the inspiration for how to end this video.
I like the kind of slinking away animation too at the end. Kind of like this fight is not over. You're
yeah,
going to
because
see,
he's the rival.
Yeah, you're going to see this guy again at some point. Kind of establishing the main antagonist. But yeah, this one was fun.
What did you two think?
I go for it.
I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
Took me a minute to realize that was an actual character, not just a mob character. I was like, oh yeah, they're just fighting. Then I noticed some things, and I was like, oh yeah, okay.
I was definitely trying to make it like look generic as heck, because I was formulating the plan for later on in this series, and so I was like, oh, I know what to do with this. So I tried to make it look generic, but it also is very obvious because I needed to keep some certain design elements.
Yeah,
so...
and to Wazy's credit, a lot of what becomes sort of the loose narrative and plot of this overall project primarily evolved from her ideas. Because originally, when I put all of the tracks together, I was thinking kind of themes in each one. But she's like, what if we introduce character A and kind of utilize it this way? And she said, I have a plan. If you trust me, and I'll run with it. And then it evolved into, again, there's not like a narrative. There's no plot like with written text, but there is a progression between the start and end, and I think that was a really neat touch. So definitely
I think
props.
a lot of my conversations with Raku while making this project was I didn't like, you guys don't understand, like me and Raku didn't like have conversations about any scenes except maybe one of the ones coming up. it was just, it was, I would say, I've got an idea for this. Do you trust me? And it was like 80% of our conversations was just, do you trust me? And then I would just do it anyway.
Well, yeah, and I told Wazy that it's not supposed to be like a strict type of, you know, story or whatever. It's supposed to be kind of free form. So I said, you're the professional, you know, in quotes professional, right? I said, you run with what you think is going to work, and, you know, we'll look at it. And I didn't reject any of her ideas. They were good ideas.
Yeah,
And
actually, I don't think you did. You got me to change a couple things, but it was very rare.
we'll talk about the one later on where we coincidentally had the same idea. I think that'll be interesting to talk through.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say, as a combat theme, this one it feels like a lot of the other themes. It feels a little bit more like chill, like more like gives kind of a chiller. I don't want to say lo-fi, but chill, that sort of vibe. This one it made me kind of think of Baraki, you'll probably know this one, Final Fantasy IV, the first cavern, the Mist Cavern.
Mm.
Essentially like a mix of like a faster paced combat if it was held in like in that Mist Cavern kind of vibe where it's a lot of like wind instrument kind of feel. It was actually really nice. It was like a nice contrast in that sense.
Yeah, I saw Snake's call out earlier up in the chat about the drums. Uh, I think the drums kind of set the kind of energy of the track in a lot of these. If I
Mhm.
were to do the whole project over from the beginning, I would probably mix the drums maybe 10% lower. But fortunately, like there's no rhythm problems with the drums. They're just a little bit loud in the overall mix. Some of the other ones, other tracks, you won't really hear that as much. But yeah, the kind of vibe, well, we'll see as it goes. I think this would probably be more on like the mid energy side as far as the overall feel of the whole thing. Maybe a couple exceptions, but for folks who played a lot of old school JRPGs, things like, you know, FF6, Chrono Trigger, Breath of Fire, Lufia 2, a lot of those were the inspiration for designing a lot of these tracks. And so you'll probably hear that as we proceed. And I see
Mhm.
Aces redeemed a hydrate and a stretch. All right.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let us move on to the next track. This will be number 5. I didn't number the timestamps, but that's okay. So let's take a look. Okay, so this was Geode Caverns. Let me see if I can back up here before we move on to the next one.
And I'll say it again, like the Bits' character's cycle is still my favorite default cycle.
Yeah, I think it's got
He's
a lot of
back.
personality. I like the toss and then the kind of look down. It's got a little bit more details on it than some of the other ones, which is a pretty cool
Mhm.
touch. And so this song was meant to be kind of like the official first cave theme you get. You know, uh, kind of more whimsical as opposed to kind of a dark, moody cave theme, to kind of contrast with the other dungeon theme we heard. But the kind of vibe is, you know, the party has to go do a fetch quest in some nearby cavern for a town, and so they're just going kind of combing through a dark cave, and it's not meant to be really ominous. It's just kind of meant to be a bit more light. On the track side, this was one of the earlier ones I did, and I did talk to Wazy a little bit about this. There were some things I would do a little differently if I was going to re-record this one from the ground up. The reason why the snares on the drums sounds a little bit weird is because I was trying to create like an echo effect. I figured out how to do that much more effectively later on, but it kind of creates a little bit of an unusual mood. Just for the folks on the call and in chat, do you guys know what a geode is?
Yeah, it's that
It's the
rock that
rock.
you break and it's pretty inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the rock with the crystals inside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't quite sure if I really wanted to push that as part of the design for the scene because it doesn't, it's not that important. But I like how Wazy sort of set up the simple sort of cave backdrop with details like in the background. Like Snake mentioned the bats flying, and then at the halfway mark, the stalactite on the top that falls down, and then it changes the scene for the rest of the duration of the song. And so this one, scene wise, might have been a little more simple, but I think it has a pretty good mood.
Yeah, this one I struggled with a little bit on how to do this one, but like I really liked the way I did the background with the stalagmites and stalactites, and I was like, I don't want to change that. So I was just like trying to be very careful with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that works. Again, it's more simple, but compared to some of the other ones, I think for like the theme doesn't go kind of all over the place, so it I think it works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can move on to the next one. This will be number 6. I guess I can jump to the timestamps too. Keep forgetting I have those in there. almost got it right on time. All right, so that was the Forest of the Blood Spider. And so this theme was kind of set up to be kind of like the first major quest area that the party's got to go to. We've seen some kind of more whimsical and lighter things as the party's getting situated and starting to take up quests. But I feel like the first major encounter they're going to have is going to be in this sort of forest area. So I kind of wanted to set up a bit more of a higher paced forest theme instead of something that was a bit slower. And then it's got kind of a more prominent bass line with some pianos and some chimes and some stuff that kind of comes and goes. But it's got a little bit of a different feel from some of the other kind of more whimsical-ish type ones. But this one was a fun track to record. This was also one of the earlier ones when I first started the project. And I think people have noticed that the party lineup does change, and the order that the characters show up in each scene kind of shuffles as we go around too. So you won't see the same characters in the lead, and things will sort of kind of switch up as each of the scenes progresses. But the Wazy did some really cool details with the animations on this one. I think people have picked up on a lot of the visual touches. But if you wanted to talk through that, Wazy.
Yeah. So talking about the party order and everything, I would ask Raku who he wanted in each scene, but I always made sure to make sure whatever possession in the line of 4 that they were in, they weren't in the same line that they were in the previous time they showed up, kind of thing. So like if this team appeared again, the order would be shuffled.
Yeah.
So that it's not always the same person in place. There is, when we get to later scenes, you'll see that I have a static in my head whose speed is faster than whose, especially when it comes to attacking. But for the most part, party order is random. But it's always different from the last time it was. For this one, of course, the webs on the piano, there's 4 webs and they all have their own note to them.
Yeah, I really like how they light up. That was another
Yeah.
thing that you threw in that I didn't ask for. And then when I saw the scene, I saw it immediately. I thought that's such a cool touch because, it just kind of draws your eye as the track changes.
And then that, I don't know what you call it, the little doodle part with the little
that's a harpsichord.
crawl. Yeah, the little crawly part, I called it. I was like, well, if we're in the forest of the blood spider, there's going to be spiders. So I don't know if you all saw it, but there's a group of spiders that runs across the ground. There's one that slowly climbs down a web, and then there's like 2 more that climb up and down trees as that little harpsichord part is going along. Because it was just like, again, you did really good with the like making a music that sounds like a movement, so it becomes really easy to animate to.
Yeah, and I do like how the big boy runs through periodically. I guess canonically that would be the blood spider, since that's like the big antagonist boss of this particular area. And I was curious to see how Wazy would handle that because I knew she would throw something in, and I didn't give her any details.
I was going to put the spider closer, but I really didn't like how the leg animation looks, so that's why I hid it behind trees.
Totally valid.
I think it looks good. I like the way it animates and moves. It's really kind of quick and skittery and unsettling. One thing that I kind of thought about after you sent me the scene when we were finishing up this one, and I knew it would be too extra to bother putting in, but I was thinking as a way to close the scene out, it would have been really cool if right before the scene ends, if the spider like jumps out of the background and like eats the camera. But I figured that would be a lot more extra work. Plus, I'm sure arachnophobes wouldn't really appreciate that too much.
Looking in Matt's direction.
Well, because we didn't really do anything like that as far as like super visual gags, and I thought if we did that for one, then it would be kind of an anomaly. And so I think it's perfect the way it is. It's got a really interesting sort of mood to it.
Personally, I really like that that it was placed with me at the back of the line, being the arachnophobe. It feels like a subtle. It feels like a good nod to the fact that the inspiration of the character also isn't fond of spiders, so of course he'd be at the back of the pile when going into a spider forest.
Did you do that on purpose, Wazy?
I can't remember if I did or not.
If so, then that's funny, and if not, then that's a great coincidence.
I
Oh,
mean, it probably turned out like that, but
yeah. I mean,
Feels intentional.
the only other really funny gag you could have done would be if Matt's the only one facing the opposite direction of the rest of the party.
well then you know what, I'm gonna say that 100% that was intentional, and I did that on purpose.
There you go. Oh, I see. Rira's headed off to work. All right, Rira. Thanks for tuning in to check out the video. Again, this is all going to be up online later after we're done. So have a good day at work.
Bye.
All right, so we can move on to the next one. I'm actually going to run to the little Raku's room while this is playing. That way I can actually talk about it when we're done. So let's move on. And I'll make sure I'm muted for all of you. Don't worry.
Stop frying chicken.
Damn, boy. You frying chicken? All right, let's go. All right, so that was War of Waves. I don't know if it's picking up on the broadcast or on the video itself. There's some sort of static that I can hear on the audio. For folks on the call, can you hear that?
No.
No, you don't hear it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I lightly coughed at a point, but that
Uh,
it was
Might
like
just-
constant static. I haven't heard it.
No, it was coming from the. It sounded like it was coming from the track because there was no audio coming from Pwups' side. Um, it could just be my playback in my headphones. Either way, it's not on the final versions of the track that's been uploaded. I was just curious if people can hear that. But this particular theme was set up to be kind of like a second battle theme. Thinking about the plot progression, the party is traveling via boat somewhere as part of the overall story progression, and this would be the theme that would be playing with some like scripted encounters on the boat. And so it's a bit more of kind of an aggressive, higher energy type of battle theme compared to the other one. Doing the rhythm and drums for this one was kind of fun. I got to play around with some little more irregular rhythms when doing it, and I got to throw some horns into the melody. Now, Matt, I know you have a pretty extensive history with any for JRPGs. Does the horn melody that you hear kind of harken back to anything that you can think of?
Off the top of my head, not as much, but like between the evocation of like both the waves and like every ship that I've ever been on in a JRPG, the first one that comes to mind is FF5, just with Ferris and with the pirates there.
Okay, well, that's interesting. You probably hear it more when I point it out, but after I recorded this one, after I did everything and put it all together, and I was listening to it as I was mixing the final version of the track, for the horns specifically, the rest of the rhythms and other instruments, not really so much from what I'm going to talk about, but the horn melody is very similar to Magus's theme from Chrono Trigger, but it's a different instrument, but the notes are real similar. I was like, oh crap, did I inadvertently duplicate an incredibly well known battle theme? And I think it's different enough that it's not like I get sued. But if you hear that horn melody again and then go like listen to Magus's theme, it is very much like indirectly inspired by that. Which I
Yeah, I can kind of hear it now. It's been a while since I've been that far into Chrono Trigger, to be honest. But like now that I think about it, yeah.
it's a good thing I didn't choose strings because then it would be very much like just a slight ripoff of a well known riff in an iconic song.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, the animation for this one was pretty interesting. I know Wazy has some things to say about setting up that moving boat, but having it track to the beat was a really cool touch. So
Yeah, so I don't know if the audience noticed. I noticed they realized Matt is stabbing the boat, and if you look, actually, even there, even when Matt's sword or crimson sword is up on his shoulder, there's a line in the boat where he has stabbed it,
yep.
and that was just because I was like, while I was making the animation, I was like, oh shit, Matt stabs the boat. Well,
I forgot to turn
I
on
don't
timer.
know. Oh, whatever.
No, it's
I
on now.
was
You're good.
Okay. I was like, well, how am I gonna fix this? I mean, I guess I could make Matt a new default loop. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? No, no. I'm just gonna put a line in the floorboards to show that, yep, he is indeed stabbing the floor. But I don't know if chat noticed, but like every of the little do to do's. I don't know what instrument that is. This is the problem, Raku, is I'm not musically talented, so you'll have to help me out. But like the little do to do's, each one
Oh,
of those, the
not
boat
the
change.
drums.
No, but the little
The bass
like the
line.
Yeah, the
yeah,
baseline, yeah.
Yeah.
the little baseline of it. Every time that baseline does its little cycle, which is about 0.5 of a second or something, the boat shifts its direction. So that's why it's so erratically moving. And those waves are actually the second version of those waves that I did, because I did the first version, um, and they sucked. And I didn't like them, and they didn't transition to daytime well. So yeah, so there's the day to nighttime transitions, and then there's every time the baseline moves, so does the ship. So that's why when the baseline drops out, the boat steadies, kind of thing.
I really like that touch, and I think it's
Can
pretty
I
funny.
just
At the very end of the scene, right about where I paused it before the track completely fades out, the boat kind of settles and sinks to the bottom of the screen. And I asked Wazi when she sent me the final version of the track. I asked her if it was intentional to have it sort of just kind of sink and settle. And then I was thinking about it, and if we kind of look at the idea of Matt stabbing the boat, and the idea that it's kind of sinking at the end is kind of a really funny visual gag.
It was intentional. That one was intentional. Sorry,
Yeah.
Pwups, what were you gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say I like how you did the animation for the waves. It's very
Thank you.
nice. Very
Thank you.
nice.
I'm not 100% happy with them, but they're better than the first version. The first version was terrible.
I also like the sky's transition as the track progresses from like day to night. You have kind of like a dark, stormy backdrop, and then like a calmer, more daytime one, and it kind of flips back and forth. That was also a good touch. As the bit says, Gerudo Valley vibes. Legally distinct. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was War of Waves. Oh, this next one's a fun one. So we'll move on to the next scene. This is number 7 or 8. I'll just jump to it.
Oh, fuck this one.
Oh, there goes the timer. Okay, so that was Rambunctious Ruffians. This one was set up to be kind of like a thieves theme, And so the whole scene has the party kind of going through kind of like a rundown bar or like a thieves hideout type of place, like a dilapidated area. That's why you see floor tiles missing and rats running around and a thiefman popping in and out. And so this particular theme was inspired by another one. When I started writing this one, I had a kind of vibe in mind from one of my favorite RPG tracks of all time from back in the day, just because it's such a weird kind of tonal shift in the game it shows up in. Again, I don't want to keep picking on Matt, but I know he's played a lot of the same games I have. So, Matt, did you kind of recognize the inspiration on this one?
Abe, you're muted. I can hear you talking in the other room, but I can't hear you in the call.
Yeah, I can't.
Right. Sorry. I dropped because I was I muted because I was coughing. I was coughing and scratchy. I can't pick up like the immediate reference. It gives like a lot of really solid like bar brawly kind of vibes,
Mm-hmm.
and like a bandit town kind of feel.
Yep. Yep.
Outside of that, I couldn't pick up like exact vibes.
Okay, so the inspiration for this one is the theme from Zozo in FF6.
All right.
The big difference is it's faster. I think it's called
Mhm.
Slam Shuffle. I think is the theme from Zozo. That one's a bit slower and it has an entirely different instrument set, but that kind of like shady, like you said, thief town bar brawlish kind of vibe is what I was going for here. But then I took the tempo, made it a lot faster, and started throwing in some other kind of instruments that come in and out. Bits mentioned in the chat, like the piano riff that comes and goes. I wanted to create something that's kind of a little bit jazzy, but also a little bit kind of chaotic and erratic, since it's supposed to be kind of like be aware of your surroundings, don't have your wallet visible when you're walking around this area, type of thing. But the Zozo theme is one of my favorites because it's just so unique compared to a lot of the other OST songs in FF6.
Yeah.
Snake says, "Please tell me the rat has a name." Wazy?
The rat's filed name is Run Run Boy, if that makes you feel better. Like, because it's a symbol, and so I have to name all the symbols when I put them in the animation. So that one's is Run Run Boy, but no spaces in between that. This video pisses me off. This is the song that pisses me off the most. But not via anything Raku did.
I remember hearing about this one.
This is what happened. So I made the background to this way better than it is here. It was the same kind of idea, but I had put so much detail into making it look decrepit and beat up and like fucking like gruesome fucking like there was blood stuff on the wall, like the floor had just trash all over it. Like it looked real good, and I was really proud of it, and I saved it, and I was like, cool, now I can work on the characters. And in War of the Waves, I got the idea for Ramen being the one to play the notes, which is what he did in this one. I was going to do it in War of the Waves, but there was just so much going on in that scene that I was like, no, it'll just get lost in the everything of it, especially with the boat movement. So this is the one where it's like, I'll have Ramen play his trombone to the, what instrument is it?
It's a saxophone.
It's a saxophone.
I don't know if people saw that when the video was playing, but yeah, whenever the sax riff comes in and Ramen is playing his trombone, it's not the same instrument, I know, but he's playing the note progression, which Wazy specifically threw that in there, and I thought it was great.
It looks good, but it looked better. I designed that whole part, and I had cued it, and I had like matched it all to the music, and it was perfect, and everything was good. And I was like, cool, I just got to throw the other 3 characters in here, make the little bandit guy, which if you can't tell is a direct rip of the rival, just with a different palette swap, because I thought I was funny. I
didn't notice that, actually.
What are enemies if not palette swaps of other people? So I did all that, saved it, was ready to go, and then it crashed. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Not unheard of, but whatever. I went to reopen the file, and it had corrupted because the background had been so detailed and contained so many pixels that it corrupted the entire file. And I had to restart from the beginning. So I had to go back in, take this background, which luckily I have a clean version of this background saved somewhere. So I had to take this background, ruin it again, but not ruin it too much so it wouldn't crash again. Resync ramen, put everybody else in. I had to I lost like a good 6 to 8 hours of work, and it made me so mad that I was just like, oh yeah, I'm on schedule, and then it crashed. And it's not so bad it crashed because I had saved recently, but the fact it corrupted.
Yeah, I don't
Oh.
remember what day it was, but one day I was, going about my business, and all of a sudden I get like 8 chats from Wazy in Discord. That's all caps swear words for just a page. And she explained what happened. I was like, oh, that's okay. Do what you got to do. But I understand it's a lot of work loss, and she was pretty upset.
I was very
Justifiably
upset.
so.
But it looks good, and I really like how ramen turned out in this one. It's not as good as it was, but I'm glad that I got the idea of Cross of him playing the notes to the song.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, and I think you were able to repurpose this backdrop for another scene we'll see a little bit later.
I was. That's why it was saved. Is because I have a nice version of this for a later song, and I had saved it in my background folder, which is why I was able to remake this so easily. Is because I saved the clean version as another file, and then came back and was working on this. So, and then it corrupted.
Yeah, well, it's Flash for you.
Yay.
Okay, so that was Rambunctious Ruffians. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. I stopped keeping track of the numbers. The next song. Let's go. Oh, come on, mouse. All right, so that was Ancient Library, and so this one's got a bit more of a slower vibe compared to some of the other tracks. The whole point was kind of a more ambient type of sound from the scene. You'd hear this in kind of like a large like archive or maybe like an arcane library, and so it definitely has a bit more of a kind of symphonic-ish type orchestral vibe to it. And Nawazi, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think around this scene in the project was where we started talking about having dedicated single character scenes because
Yeah, this was when I asked you which characters you wanted in this scene, and you said, I think it would be funny if it was just Wazy. And then we kind of had the idea of like, oh, each character could kind of get their own like dedicated song to them because Matt already had Rivals Clash.
mm-hmm.
So let's do, if it's just Wazy, then we can do one for the other four characters too. So
Yeah, if I actually was good at planning out projects, then I would have figured that out earlier on because we could have purposed some of the earlier ones into single character ones, but the way it turned out ended up working out perfectly fine. But I remember when I was talking to Waz and she said, "How do you want me to set up the scene?" And I said, "I think it'd be really funny if it was you sleeping in a library." And then I kind of said, bookshelves, like a library kind of backdrop. And the big visual cues I like is one, how when the track kind of starts up, it's dark. And then when the instruments sort of kick in, the torch goes on and it illuminates everything. And then things like the books. People notice the books flying in and out of the bookshelf is tied to like the chime synths.
mhm.
And let's see, Ace mentioned the books with the notes. So the note logo that Wazi put on the books is my Tenpo logo for my mascot. And I didn't ask her to do that either. So when I saw that, I thought that was also a pretty neat visual touch.
The idea is that the character is asleep in the library, in the magic library, and all this cool shit's going on, and she's asleep during it.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
pretty funny. Like it's a good visual gag, but also I feel like it's on brand with what the character would do.
yeah. Oh yeah. This one was fun because I did get to play with the lights. Like it starts off darker, and then the torch magically comes on, and all that kind of fun stuff. So this one was kind of fun, and it was also really easy because I only had to basically worry about Wazzy snoring, and worrying about the hair and the little bunny ear piece. But other than that, I kind of like this one because it was a very chill vibe. It was very easy to kind of like realize when certain or animated points should be to it.
Yeah, and even though it's simple and it has basically a prominent character in the front and then stuff going on in the background, I think it's a really good scene because it doesn't need to be complex. In fact, if I was gonna do kind of like a lo-fi hip hop type of infinitely looping animation for like a soundtrack, I would want it to look something like this, where there might be minor things that change here or there, but it's really more almost like a not screensaver, but it's just supposed to be a simple idle animation, but still something that's interesting to look at, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I ever do a project like that, I guess who I'm gonna call first.
Yay!
Wazy. Yay.
Okay, we can go ahead and move on to the next track. We are almost halfway, I think.
Yeah, this one is going to be halfway.
Yeah. All right. So let's check it out. I'll just jump to it again. Okay, so that was the world has changed, and so a couple people kind of guessed some of the themes for this one. This is the second overworld theme. As far as the game plot in quotes progression, this would be kind of like the second major act. And the setting that I was sort of envisioning that I kind of talked through with Wazy for this one would be like after Rival has some sort of major event that severely impacts the world. And so Sour Lad's mentioning in the chat, did Rival burn the forest down? Yeah, this is like an altered tile set from the first overworld theme, and it's supposed to be the same landscape, which is why you see Castle make a return. And things like the kind of charred forest. I saw a question about the tornado in the background. I think that's supposed to be smoke, right, Wazy?
Yeah, it's smoke, but it can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, and so the overall vibe that I was going for with the track, since it's supposed to be like again the darker second act as things happen and the party's trying to, figure out what they're gonna do and fight the antagonist. I wanted to be a little bit more moody and have a lot of elements of the first overall theme, but be a bit more kind of brooding and ominous without being just like a real oppressively kind of like sad theme. It's supposed to just be kind of like a darker, more ominous type of feel. And so I switched around some of the instruments. I did this one from the ground up, but I used the first overworld track as kind of a jump off point for how I was going to set up like the tempo and instruments, and tried to flip some of the themes so that it sounded kind of appropriate. On the animation side, what you got, Wazy?
On the animation side, again, our protagonist, the castle, makes a return. All these trees were very hard to draw. But yeah, this one, me and Raku had a bit of a back and forth. I personally don't like the ominous rival looking down on the party, fading in and out. But when Raku and I were talking about it, it was like, yeah, we need to kind of pin this on somebody story wise. So that's
Yeah,
kind of what
and
we went with.
I think it ended up working out, at least to me, having it tied to that one kind of noteworthy synth part and then just being temporarily there and then fading out, as opposed to having the rival looming over the whole thing. Because I know we talked about that when we're trying to figure out a good compromise. Oh, Swear Timer's back. Good luck.
Ah!
Just Wazy, good luck.
It's fine because I get to sit in silence for a while, so I do real good.
Yeah. No talking sure does make it easy, huh?
It does, man. This swear timer stuff's easy.
Oh, and I didn't tell you, you can't even think in swear words either. I'll know.
Oh, well, too bad. What are you gonna do?
Thought
Mind
crimes don't
police me?
exist. Thought crimes don't exist.
Yeah, they don't. Pwups is right.
We also got a hydrate reminder from Ace.
Thank you, Ace.
But yeah, this one was a little more simple because again, it's kind of more of a scene with the entire party, but I like the mood. I think the backdrop and everything kind of pairs well.
Yeah,
And
it's
I-
very much a World of Ruin versus regular worlds like kind of vibe.
Yeah,
The other
and
thing,
go ahead.
is like the castle is more decrepit in this one than it was the first time. It's the same castle. I just made it worse and changed its palette.
It's interesting that Matt brings up World of Ruin again, going back to like FF6. That was one thing I was initially thinking about. There was two themes of games that I really like a lot that I was going back and forth with as far as the inspiration. The first one was World of Ruin from FF6, and the second one I think it's called Our Journey from Breath of Fire 2. It's the third of the overworld themes, and what I ended up doing was kind of a compromise between the two, because if you've ever played FF6 from the SNES, after major world altering events happen and you go to the World of Ruin, it is a very like dark, atmospheric, and almost kind of spooky, scary type of overworld theme. It's very unique, and I don't think I've ever seen that in an old school RPG before. And then for Breath of Fire, for Our Journey, it's definitely a much sadder theme, but it's not like, things got real, like half the world might be dead type of vibe. So I kind of wanted to split the difference on that. and go for something that definitely sounds like it's more moody than the original World of Adventure, the first one. But I didn't go for like a complete 180 on the tonal shift. I might think about that for the next time I do one of these. I think it'd be fun to try and duplicate that type of feel, because when you pop into World of Ruin, like your entire party is just scattered. You don't know where anyone is. You don't even know if they're alive, and it's like catastrophic events have happened. Now go out and save the world type of deal. So yeah, that's definitely a good callback. Maybe I can duplicate a like searching for friends type song, Matt. That's one of my favorites from FF6. I don't know if I could do something like that justice, but I'll
Maybe in the
try.
future.
Oh yeah, I do. I want to do another one of these. I don't know if it's going to be like a direct sequel, but I like these characters, and I think it'd be fun to use them for something else. Plus, going through this type of exercise for this style of music was very outside my comfort zone, and so I'd
Oh my
like.
god, are we gonna Final Fantasy X too? Where we get a cool pop song remix to start with?
No, I can tell you right now. No, we're not going. Only okay. We could do that only if it's your character in like the slutty pop star outfit.
Fucking done.
Oh, there goes the timer. I haven't even thought that far ahead yet, and I have no idea how what the scope and scale of a project like that would be. I just would like to do another RPG themed album because again, it was a fun experiment, and I know it was a lot of work.
So much work.
But with that, we will move on. Oh, this next one's fun. It's too bad Ramen's not here. I need to make sure he sees this next one. All right, let us continue. Okay. So that was Industrious Smiths. This is Ramen's solo song slash scene. And this one was fun. I know I haven't really talked a ton about all of the kind of specific details that go into like the writing and composition of these songs, but I am particularly proud of the rhythm of this one because getting that blacksmith type noise using my synthesizer and loop took a lot of experimenting around with, but I knew it was going to be like a Smith type song, and I really wanted that to be kind of like a driving part of the rhythm. And I saw Snake had mentioned the rhythm of repair is also the song. Yeah, that's directly part of the percussion line and rhythm is that sort of clinking sound. But getting it to sound like something being hit on an anvil took a lot of work, but I figured it out, and the overall song is kind of fun. The kind of setup for this would be, a significant world event has happened because of the rival, and so the party is trying to figure out a way to get stronger. And I talked to Wazy about this, and we went back and forth on how to set up this particular one, and she took it in a direction I originally hadn't envisioned as far as setting up the blacksmith, but I really like where she took it. And so because we're trying to figure out, okay, who would go to the blacksmith to get something. At first, I thought, well, Matt will go and get like a new sword, but he already had his own scene. And we kind of went back and forth and ultimately settled on the idea of Ramen going to the blacksmith with his trombone to get his trombone reforged, which is just a hilarious concept to me because that's how instruments work. And so he's taking it to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith is just hammering away on this trombone. But the intent is at the end of the process, he'll have a reforged, stronger trombone. Like in Zelda. I did see a question from Pwups about the dragon blacksmith. That was also Wazy's idea, and he takes some inspiration from my D&D character. It's a little bit different,
Oh.
but yeah, that was kind of like the general inspiration for that one, wasn't it, Wazy?
It was, yeah. It was definitely, it was based on your D&D character, and lining that character up to get the beats right was a little bit of a pain, but like once I got it, it fits so nicely. I was like, yes, this is exactly what we want. You'll actually notice the rat, because I saw Snake say there's the rat boy again. That's actually a different rat.
A whole
Then
new rat.
that's a whole new rat because I actually took the monkey mole colors of the rat, like from Ramen is part of a team called Team Monkey Mole. And so
Oh,
I made that rat more circular mole shaped and added the brown of the monkey mole mascot to kind of symbolize them in Ramen's solo scene. So you'll see, like, with some of people, like, there's two characters that have solo scenes, and I've given them kind of like hints towards other people they hang out with.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
We should see
that's a
if
nice little
if,
touch.
if Ramen picks that up when he sees this, because that's a
Yeah.
pretty cool call out to his group.
Yeah. But other than that, this scene I had a lot of trouble with the composition of like where I wanted everybody in it. But like once everything finally came together, it was really easy to put together. It was just the struggle of like figuring out how I wanted the scene to even look. Because at first it was outside and it was just a big mess. So
Yeah, and I think the ideas we'd kind of kick back and forth would be like, being outside a blacksmith shop, and then rather than see the blacksmith, you just have like a light flashing from inside showing like a forge being hit. And ultimately, again, the way you took this one was way better with like the forge in the back going on and off as the track kind of kicks up and down, and then having Ramen's character kind of bopping along, and then at some point he kind of gets bored when the track kind of dies down a little bit, and then he picks back up and starts bobbing his head again. Meanwhile, the smith is just constantly hammering away. This one is one of my favorites. I really like the way this one turned out. It's fun. All right, we can go ahead and move on. Did anyone else have comments? I did pick
I
up a
like
little
that
bit of
Ramen falls asleep.
You couldn't tell because he's wearing sunglasses.
yeah.
I did pull a little bit of inspiration on this one too from another FF6 track because I was trying to figure out how to do the sound of the hammer on the anvil, and it's the Magitech Factory Mat from FF6.
Yes, yes.
because it has a similar type of percussion because it's like this evil factory where these creatures are being experimented on. And so I wanted to kind of capture a similar style of using like that type of percussive noise, but then tailor it more towards like an anvil being hit with like a ringing. And so I think the way I did it was I took like a bell or like a triangle hit on the synthesizer and put some filters around it and combine it with another like snare hit and kind of merge them into one to create that kind of thumping impact with a little bit of a ring to it. Either way, that it was easily the biggest part of trying to design the song, but again, I think it turned out well, and it's a fun scene. Oh, okay, I know which one's coming up next. All right, let's proceed. Okay, uh, I wanted to kind of make sure I didn't miss the cutoff on this one. That was Scarlet Sands, and I think a lot of people picked up on this one based on the scene and kind of the overall style. This is the desert theme, and writing this one was a fun experiment. I didn't take any specific track inspiration on this one, but I had an idea of the vibe and the general kind of percussion and instrument style I wanted. And this one was kind of towards the second half of the tracks that I made. I feel like the second half of the tracks that I created, not necessarily in the order you hear them in the release, but in the order that I created them, I feel like the second half is better made than the first half. I kind of learned a lot. There was a bit of a learning curve as far as doing writing of songs in this style and messing around on instruments. But I feel like it conveys the vibe pretty well of being, stuck in a desert, and that really is reflected in the scene Wazy set up. And I'm sure she has things to say on this one too. So I'll let her talk through the details because there's some interesting nods here.
Yeah. So there was a uncomfortable amount of time Googling whether tumbleweeds are in the desert or not. Um,
Desert and
'Cause
plains, I think.
yeah, because I was like, what but do they show, like, because in my head, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but I'm like, but does it though? I really like the colors for the background of this one. And that weird little, I don't know, I called it the alien part, but I don't know what you would call it. In technical musical terms, but like I would make the town in the background disappear because
The
is
that
it
kind of distorted synth that comes in.
yeah. I made the town in the background disappear because I wanted it to be like, well, is it a mirage or is it really there? Is there hope that they will get out of the desert, or are they just fucking hallucinating from the heat? So that's kind of was my kind of idea. And then yeah, I threw a scorpion in there because I was like, what the fuck else can I have go across the screen in the desert? So
What's the creature
and
that
then
runs across in the very back? Is it supposed to be a
it's a
different type of
coyote.
Okay, there you go. I knew it was gonna.
It's
I
a
thought it was gonna say like a fox,
coyote.
Oh,
like
it's a coyote.
a
Yeah,
desert
because
fox.
there was a lot of googling of what is in deserts. But
I
you'll
like
notice
the scorpion. The scorpion's just trucking along. It's pretty funny.
yeah. So yeah, this was fun, and then the only real pain was getting it to transition tonight, just because the color palette fucking hated me when it came to trying to transition it. But
Oh,
other than that, it was
I think
this one was fun to work with just because the way the beat worked.
I
So
think I think I asked you to stretch out the transition because the initial version had it like flipping on a light switch on and off. It was really quick.
yeah, yeah.
But I think it worked pretty well. Since you mentioned that synth line, the instrument I was trying to replicate because I didn't have a preset on my synthesizer was like a sitar.
Mm,
Um,
Yeah.
okay.
but I ended up using kind of some filter effects, and it creates an interesting distortion. It doesn't really sound like a sitar, but it's close because I wanted to have kind of like that Indian or Middle Eastern ish vibe to like a desert theme. I don't know if that's stereotypical, but kind of invoking like desert. You're in a desert, and you need to figure that out before you die of thirst. Speaking of which, we have a hydrate and a stretch from Ace.
Oh,
Oh, curious.
I like that Ace is like Froggy needs some kind of moisturizer to keep him alive in the desert.
He's
I like to
gonna
think
become a raisin.
I like to think canonically because Ponk, the summoner, is there. They might have some sort of summon they can do, like a water elemental or like a water creature to protect the party.
Or maybe there's noodles maybe there's like liquid in the big
Oh.
old soup head.
Oh no, they're drinking ramen's
they're
broth.
drinking they're
His head
drinking his
juice.
broth. Yeah.
Sour Lad did point out the visual touch. We see Ramen's new reforged trombone here.
Yes. Sorry, I've completely forgot about that. Yeah. I want you guys to know it's very difficult to figure out how to upgrade a trombone. So I figured like with Pink having a red ribbon on their weapon, and Ramen having red on his, I was like, oh, I'll put a weapon on there, or I'll put a ribbon on there. And a detail you don't really notice besides the color is that the horn part is actually bigger than the last one was.
Right
So
here, the bell. The bell's a little longer or
yeah,
larger.
it's larger, yeah. So
Snake says
More
you could
honk
have
from it.
made it a
more
double
honk.
trombone. That's funny.
Man, that would have been way too much effort.
You have like a two-sided trombone, so it becomes like a glaive, like a twin-bladed glaive. Because I talked
Or let
to
him dual wield.
I talked to Ramen about this way before we started working on this project. Because I showed him my prototype, which is pretty much identical to what Wazy's created here. And the prototype has the trombone, and he said he's more of like a bass, electric bass or euphonium type of player. And I said, well, I chose a trombone as a weapon because when I asked you in the beginning what the bard would use, you said trombone. But I said trying to figure out a way to weaponize a trombone is a really funny idea to me. And we'll see that later down the road what Ozzy came up with. But I told Ramen, I was like, his secret attack is just playing the brown note.
Oh,
His limit break.
It's a
poor
debuff,
nerd.
an ailment, status ailment.
Oh yeah, that's a significant ailment.
Oh yeah, that is not a minor ailment. That's a major ailment.
Yeah. Like the only comment I really have is like I do genuinely like how well the day to night transition turned out. And very it gives that like the song gives the kind of that feel of like the almost lost in the desert, not quite. Like it's like you have like the heart of I know where I'm going, but the eyes see something different kind of feel. Like that's the kind of feel you get from the tone of the song as well.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a kind of more disorienting as opposed to you're already lost.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like, if you're not careful, you will get lost and you will die out in the desert in the middle of nowhere. And like Wazi mentioned before, the idea of the mirage in the back kind of fading in and out is kind of like the parties needs to be careful or they're going to get stuck. And I'll talk about kind of my idea, my headcanon progression about where this is taking place in relation to the other events, because to me, this does lead into the next scene, but it's not really apparent. So we can move on. The next one's another one of my favorites. We have another solo scene coming up. And this one was really interesting when it turned out. So let's take a look. Okay. And so that was Shadow Labyrinth. This is Punk Gremlin Bane's solo scene. And again, this one was one of my favorites. The song itself was set up to be kind of like the second major dungeon theme you hear. And so you'll notice the same backdrop that we saw on Deep Dark Depths, but it's kind of a bit more of an a higher tempo, higher energy type of song, but it's also a bit more kind of moody and ominous compared to the first one, which is a little bit more light, I would say. I really liked how the composition turned out on this one. I was going back and forth about where to put it for a while, and then I thought, no, it kind of sounds like a logical second dungeon theme. And so before we get into the scene itself from Wazy, oh, another swear timer. Good luck.
Row.
Oh,
So I had a headcanon idea for what the scene, kind of how it fits into the overall story. And so we talked about how the world altering event from Rival caused a bunch of problems and everyone is trying to get stronger. We saw Ramen's character going to get a new trombone. To me, this is Pwups or Ponk's training arc. And so they've gone into this dungeon to train against these shadow creatures you see. And to me, the previous scene where they're traveling through the desert is taking the character Ponk to this area to train. And I kind of like the idea that they have to traverse this desert out to the middle of nowhere to get to this secret dungeon where there's all these creatures, and then they leave Ponk there to train and get stronger against these nightmare creatures that are there. And so for Wazy, I don't know if that was kind of what you were thinking, because we didn't talk about that at all. But as far as the storyline progression, this seems like Ponk's training arc.
Maybe I was not thinking that when I made this. I was thinking it's to me it was very dark and like kind of creepy, and I again, you were playing with the kind of noises of things moving in the dark, and I just kind of played into that, and that's why I have so many shadows kind of playing around. This one was very much another light composition kind of playing around with, like kind of like how with the ancient library one was. So, and yes, I see chat. There is more rat, boys. This is actually the same rat
So
from
many
before.
rats.
It's the same rat. It's the same rat from the ruffians come back.
I think
So,
we might need to do a spin-off project for just all of the secondary animal characters that show up.
all them rats.
the Rat Pack.
The rats, all of the other animals. But yeah, I really like the style of the shadow creatures. One thing I think Wazi and I kind of share from an artistic standpoint is creature design interests. Like, I don't know if you consider yourself a creature designer, but I know since you work on Spooky Sushi and you like drawing cryptids, I was really kind of letting you take the reins on what to put into the scene, because all I just said is, Pwups' character solo, here's the song, kind of construct something. And again, I was really happy with the way this one turned out. It's simple, but it's fun.
Yeah, I also like Pwups' idol animation in this one where they go up on their
Tito's
on their little tippy toes as they're just standing in the dark. So
It, yeah, it looks like kind of a almost like a ritual, like an incantation ritual that's being done, and then you have the light spell that melts all the shadows away and lights everything up for a bit. And simple, but
yeah,
very interesting. Snake asks, "What spells do they have?" Well, obviously there's the light spell, like cast light. We will see some other things later. Again, Pont Gremlinbane is a summoner, and we haven't really seen that too much, but we will later.
Can I just say I really like how the song actually like it sounds like you're kind of like tense because you're in a dark, lonely place.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that comes across, because when I originally wrote that one, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, because it could have doubled as a battle theme, but it wasn't super aggressive. And it kind of sounds like a darker, more kind of moody version of the first dungeon theme, Deep Dark Depths. And so I kind of went back and forth on where to put this one in the overall release and what to assign it, And then eventually I said, okay, second dungeon theme seems to make sense, like an advanced dungeon theme you'd hear later in the game. And then when I told that to Wazy, she kind of ran with that with the using the dungeon backdrop. I don't know if it's the exact same one from Depths, but very
It's a
similar
part of
style.
Depths because Depths was moving, so it's
Yeah,
a part of Depths as well. But I did have to do some edits to it.
yeah. And so again, it wasn't really intentional, but it ended up working well for that type of theme. And so I'm glad that comes across. All right, I think we have another solo theme. There's two more left. Bits is the last one, so let's go check out next in line. Okay, so that was Gracious Hospitality. And so this one has a different vibe from a lot of the other ones we've heard up till now. And so a lot of people kind of guessed the general theme of this one. This is like an inn theme. So it's meant to be a bit more kind of comfy and laid back and kind of warm and welcoming as opposed to a lot of the other ones in this second half, which have been a lot more kind of dark and ominous and brooding. But this is Froggy's solo scene. And I guess thinking about the plot progression of everyone getting stronger, maybe Froggy is fueled by whatever he's drinking, and that is how he is gaining strength. But he's here chilling in kind of a bar. This is a similar setup to Ruffians. It's the same tile set, just repurposed. Now, Waz, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but I kind of like the idea that it's been cleaned up and it's the same environment, but it's been cleaned up and now is not run down.
I like to think it's a whole different environment, but just like this, it's the same way people build things.
Same style. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And people,
It is the same background,
yeah,
but
but cleaned up.
yeah.
Frog soup. He could be drinking frog soup.
He's drinking frog soup. This one I got to design Banani. Originally she was just gonna be a cat chilling on the counter, but then I was like, nah, we'll get a barmaid in here. So obviously that was Banani.
Yeah,
Thus,
and
we have a cat girl made.
Yeah.
Wazy and I talked about that a bit when she was developing this scene in the concept, and she said, you know, are you good with me doing like a full fleshed out cat girl design for Banani? I said, oh yeah, absolutely. I really wanted to have her cameo in Froggy's scene, and so she is like the barmaid working, and you can see her like cleaning the tables and wandering back and forth while Froggy's kind of vibing and drinking his drink in the foreground. It's kind of a neat touch. I'll need to make sure those two see this. I did kind of drop a subtle hint to Froggy that he should look out for some cameos in the final product, but I didn't tell him exactly what we did.
Yeah.
But Gracious Hospitality was interesting. This one was constructed pretty differently from the other ones, but I kind of took some cues from other games where you have like an inn or a shop theme and tried to make it, you know, again, kind of comfy and warm sounding instead of like cold and scary like some of the other ones. But it's really kind of just a good chill vibe. And little subtle animations of Froggy, like who was it? Is it Snake? Snake mentioned how Froggy's head kind of turns and he's, you know, just kind of hanging out. It's subtle, but I think it's really cool for making the character seem alive.
Yeah, it gives off like a rest vibe, but in it kind of upbeat in the sense that like it feels like there's and especially because the way that it's transposed in the darker end of the songs, it feels like it's like this is that like little light, that little bolt hole in the storm kind of feel is what it kind of evokes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tonal break in what everything has kind of done so far, which that's why I stuck it here. This song could have gone in the first half too, but I feel like it kind of is a little bit of a break from everything we've seen up till now. And then the next one is also interesting. It's a little bit tonally different than the other ones, but it's pretty fun. And so we can move on to number like what 16 or something, 15 or 16. And I'm just gonna jump there. Okay. So that was Rock Dragon. And so this was probably my favorite song in the entire set for a while. This was a lot of fun to work on. And so from a song perspective, this one was set up to be like a boss intro or kind of like a precursor to a fight. And so I didn't really have too many things that I specifically wanted to do with the scene. For reference, the dragon design here is based off of something I've created. And then I sent it over to Wazy and said, I think it'd be cool if the characters are talking to this creature as opposed to just a straight out fight. And then the song is what's playing while they're talking, kind of like an intro to the character or an intro to a boss. And so that's why you kind of have the kind of pick up as it goes. It almost sounds like a wrestler opening song when someone's coming out to a ring. And so that's kind of how I built the overall track. But what Wazy did with the scene was really interesting. And so I'll let her kind of talk about her strategy, and then I'll kind of chime in on what I was thinking for this because it's actually pretty interesting. So we want to talk about the animation.
So I will say this: some people were talking about the what they're saying. So I didn't want actual words because I didn't want to. I didn't want to put that on me. I didn't want to have to be the guy to like make up what they were all saying. So it's like, oh, okay. So I went online and I got a font that was runes, and I was like, oh, that looks perfect. I'm not going to tell you what it is they're saying, but I will say it is real things and it is song lyrics. And I will not reveal which song it is, but they are literally saying song lyrics back and forth. And you'll notice the Wazy character doesn't talk until near the midway point. And the second the Wazy character talks, the dragon's expression changes to this more annoyed version. And so my idea is that conversation is going great, and then Wazy opens her mouth and fucking ruins it for the party. So that was kind of my idea.
Yeah, and so when I was talking to Wazy about this in the beginning, I had sent her the track and the design for the dragon. I said, here's kind of what I'm thinking, go ahead and visualize it however you want. And she sends it back to me after she finished it, and she said, I don't know if you're going to like it, but here's what I did. And then we have the product we see here with the dialogue, and you have the little character portraits under the dialogue for both the dragon and the party. And it turns out what I was envisioning for the scene is exactly what she did. I didn't tell her that, but I thought in my head, as they're talking to this creature, it'd be great if there was dialogue. Like the characters are just talking back and forth, and then it leads into the next scene that we're going to see. And then so she did that coincidentally in the exact same type of kind of structure I was talking about, but she did it based around the character interactions, like she's saying, at the first repeat when the song starts over again, and Wazy's character Wasley chimes in with her dialogue, and then the dragon gets mad, and you can see as they're talking, the dragon's expression stays mad, and eventually it starts like snorting out like things of air and starts kind of huffing a little bit, and I thought that was the perfect setup for the next scene that we're going to see shortly. And so I thought it was really funny. I told Wazy when I was talking to her, I said, I don't know how you managed to have the same idea I did, but you did, and it's perfect because it sets up everything. And it's very appropriate for what the characters would do. And so for Froggy's character, Bits' character, and Matt's character, I kind of foresee them having this, amicable dialogue with this creature because it's not supposed to be an enemy. It's just a creature they've encountered, and they're talking about, can you help us, or can you kind of work with us on this stuff. And then Wazy kind of chimes in and says what she says, and then she pisses off the dragon, and then that leads into where we're going in the next scene. And so overall, it's pretty fun. And I like the idea, again, keeping with a video game RPG aesthetic, having the dialogue there with the character portraits helps sell that better. And so that was pretty fun. And so if no one else has any comments, we can move on to the next one. There wasn't much inspiration as far as other songs or works for this one. I came up with this kind of rock themed song that I was gearing towards like a character's intro. And because I like puns, the reason why it's called Rock Dragon is one, because the song is like kind of a rock themed song, and the dragon itself is like a stone or like an earth dragon. And so it's all one big rich tapestry of puns and in jokes, because that's how we do. But
Heck yeah.
we will go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, so that was Stand and Fight. This is technically the boss theme for the entire game, as it were. This is just the first time you hear it, and I figured leading up to this whole encounter with the rock dragon, having everything that happened in the scene before, it kind of makes sense to have that be the boss theme, even though this is the first time we've heard it. And so that one musically is meant to be kind of a bit more aggressive. If I were to do that one again, I'd probably add some more instruments. I know the version I gave Wazy was kind of lower in volume, so she had to tweak it for the scene. But I went back and re-recorded it before I uploaded everything for the release. So that one shouldn't have any volume problems, but it was a little softer than the others. And once again, we have horn melodies. I do like horns. And then just kind of a more driving sort of feel for like a boss. And then this is the first time we've had a full party in a fight, right, Wazy?
Yeah, this is our first full party fight scene because the only other one we've had is Matt's. So.
Yep. And so, based on some stuff that we'll see towards the end, it was, I guess, helpful to establish animations and everything for the party, since we kind of knew we were headed towards a final conflict at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But for the scene itself, the way I kind of saw this story-wise playing out is obviously negotiations have failed, diplomacy has failed, and so the party fights the dragon, and ultimately they kind of drive it off. But as a result, like if they were trying to get passage through wherever it lives in order to get to the next thing in the story, that obviously didn't happen because they made it mad, and so as a result of this encounter, there's going to be a slight deviation in the story. But I'm pretty happy with the way this one was set up and all of the different details. I had to watch this one more than once because I was watching the dragon for part of it, and then I had to go back and watch it again and look at all of the animation details Wazy put for the party. And so you see effects and different things when the characters are doing attacks or spells or whatnot. It's definitely got a lot to it. So I would say make sure you take a look and see it, all of the visual details she threw in, because this one was a pretty heavy lift. Wazy,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the animation side?
So for the scene in general, as everybody noticed, yes, I'm the one who dies and Froggy revives me. If you notice, the dragon's first attack is directly to me. And then so I had it. I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna be the one that pisses off the dragon, and then I'm not the first dead in this scene. So that's kind of how I placed this one. I set this one up badly when it came to like the background. I did it wrong. But I learned from my mistakes for the next battle scene we'll see, and I actually fixed it up and made the animation like a lot smoother. But as it comes to battle styles, again, Froggy's the only one with healing spells, in my opinion. Um, Bits just, Bits' character just throws bottles, um, and is a very mid-range like damage. Wazy is faster, but very showy, and again mid-range damage like Bits. And then Matt is a heavy hitter, but he is slower, essentially, in my opinion. And then the dragon design Raku did, but he sent me two different dragons, and there was this one, and then there was another one, and I took the color palette of the other one and put it on this dragon just because it kind of fit better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it makes a little more sense because the first design I did would have been a lot more vertical if you put it in the scene as I drew it, and the second one was more quadrupedal, and it's better for like a horizontal scene format.
So yeah, this one I think turned out a lot better, and I really like this fight scene because now you're starting to see a little bit more of the characters, because how they fight. When you see their specials later on, it'll be like, oh, that's cool, but I really like how their fight kind of played out, because before this I had only done Matt, and that's just swinging a sword. So it was really nice to play with elements like what would Wazy do with an axe, what would Bits do with the bottle, and of course Froggy just lifts his staff, but still.
Yeah, I saw Snake had asked who's the DPS of the party. Probably Matt is the one who hits the hardest.
Matt hits the hardest, but he can also take the most damage. I kind of, the way you'll see in another scene that I kind of set it up that like Matt and Ramen are the hard hitters, and then me and Bits are the middle ground, and then of course Pwups and Froggy are the support kind of characters. But you'll see that later on.
Yeah, and so a lot, like I said, this is kind of a setup for what everything is building towards near the end. But it does a lot of the groundwork, which is pretty interesting. If I
Mhm.
had more time and budget and didn't worry about killing Wazy with my requests, I would have tried to set it up like an actual RPG HUD interface with like life bars and hit points and magic points, like an old RPG screen. But
Yep.
it wasn't really necessary for this because it doesn't show up anywhere else, and I think it would have just complicated the project. But yeah, this one was good. Stand and Fight was a fun one to see kind of come together. And then one last note, at the end the dragon has kind of an ultimate attack and then flees, which is kind of in line with what Rivals Clash did, where the rival retreats at the end. And so the party hasn't actually killed a boss yet. They've just sort of driven them off. So I think someone said pacifist run at some point. That is technically accurate, I guess. The party has been victorious, but they haven't actually murdered anything. Will they?
We're nice like that.
We're just good little dudes.
We're just good guys.
We've
We're
got
the good guys.
Yeah.
4 scenes left, I think.
Yeah.
And
oh.
Go ahead, Matt.
This is the one thing I wanted to add on. This was just like, with this even with this being the general boss thing, like against the rock dragon, the drums felt like a really good like rumbling of the earth of like this giant, well, like hulking beast moving around. So like the drums, I did really like how the drums kind of gave that sense of, oh man, this thing's big and it's gonna hit us.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this is one of the only tracks that has a prominent rhythm where the drums weren't mixed the loudest out of everything. Because I had to re-record this one since there were audio issues, and the first one where the drums were a lot louder, so I kind of balanced it a bit more. But yeah, that was what I was kind of going for, that kind of like driving heavy rhythm because you're fighting something big. It's gotta have some weight behind it. But
Yeah.
that we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, okay. The next one is one of my favorite scenes of the whole project. This is Bits' solo scene. So let's take a look. Okay, that was Jungle Heartbeat. And so this one, based on the title, kind of self-explanatory. This one was designed to be like a jungle theme. The party's traveling through like a jungle area on the way to the next thing in the plot progression. But keeping up with the theme of everyone training to get stronger, I like the idea that Bits' character Causticus is training in the jungle to improve his alchemy. And so at the beginning, when we're talking about character classes, I mentioned that Sir Causticus Bloomblight is a little bit unique. So he's an alchemist, but he's a plant alchemist, which I don't know if that's really a thing in standard RPG tropes. And you don't really see that up till now because he's just tossing his bird bombs. But the idea that his alchemy is based around summoning and controlling, plant creatures or attack plants, I think is kind of a neat idea. And I really didn't put any of that into concept when Wazy was working on this. Maybe you can remind me if I'm wrong, Wazy, but I don't think I gave you any leads on this scene because
No, we just talked that this would be Bits's solo scene.
yeah. And so when I saw the result, I was really kind of surprised and pleased with what Wazy did because the idea of, again, the character that uses their potions to kind of manipulate plant life is really cool. And in the scene itself, you see Causticus, starting with a little sprout flower and it moves to the beat, which is also really cool. And then as he pulls out these different potions and he uses them, the flower changes as the song changes. And so that's a really neat touch that I think brings the character to life and gives the character a lot of personality. And then as the song progresses, because the backdrop is kind of a simple jungle backdrop, but then you see like the fly creature kind of flying in the background. That was part of a couple concepts I sent Wazy during the project. I said, hey, if we ever need monster designs, here's some that I've made. And if you want to use them for something, go ahead. If not, it's all good. And so she ended up repurposing like a silhouetted version of that bug creature and putting it into this. And you see it kind of flitting between the trees in the background. I think it's a pretty nice touch. But
yeah, this scene was fun. Mostly because it was just kind of neat to just like play with the idea of what the flowers would do based on what Bits was putting on them. And I don't kind of know where the idea of it being a plant alchemist came from. It just kind of like when I was, because I already knew we were gonna have to do like cool finishers for like later on, and so I was trying to think of what Bits could do as their final finisher, and I was like, oh, what if they like grew a plant from like the liquid they were making? I was like, oh, that's a neat idea. And then so when Jungle was theirs, I was like, yeah, I could work with this.
yeah,
So
it's a really neat idea. And again, that was pretty much all Wazy. And she kind of just pitched, here was the idea. I said, yeah, you nailed it. I couldn't think of something more interesting as far as the characters. I also have to imagine that Causticus's outfit, that kind of cloak that he's wearing, would be kind of like the merchant from RE4, where if he pulls it open, it's just dozens of flasks of bird bottles, just like stitched into the lining of the inside of that cape.
Full stock.
What are you buying?
stranger, stranger.
And then they're all these different kind of plant based things. Because up to now you just see him tossing the green bottle, which looks like a poison flask. But I like the idea that the main kind of practice of the character is dealing with all these plants, and so we will see this come back later in a couple scenes. But yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, song wise, there was a track I did use for inspiration on this one, Matt. I don't know if you can kind of tell based on the tone and style. It was from FF6.
Oh well, that's fucking I don't know then. Matt, any idea? You're the only one here that's played Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, if you're talking, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I I got more of a like it just gave me like just like the general like kind of like the idea of like the adventure through dense brush, the adventure of like I can't really I off the top of my head I can't catch anything FF6. Like I said, I haven't played that game in a very very long time, and the music isn't sticking as much as I wish it would.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I was just curious. It's not like a setting type of inspiration so much as like a song style. It's the Velt. It's the Velt theme. I wanted to use that sort of kind of like heavy percussion, almost tribalish type of style, and I adapted it to more something a little bit faster with some more kind of flutes and type stuff. But if you go back and listen, like the Velt theme, that was sort of like the inspiration for Jungle Heartbeat,
Hmm.
because that theme slaps really hard. I don't want to rip it off, but I was like, if I could do something that invokes a similar kind of energy to it. Oh, we got another hydrate reminder from Ace.
Sips.
Since I've been doing so much talking, I've gone through an entire smoothie, and now I'm onto a thing of Guff Fuel, so I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom again. That's okay. I'll do it during the next one, if it's the one I'm thinking of. Yep. Okay. So we have 3 left, 3 tracks. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, I'm gonna cut this one off since this one ends a little bit abruptly, and I don't want to spoil the next scene. Also, Sour Lad's taking off. All right, Sour Lad, catch you later. Thanks for tuning in
Bye, Sour.
to watch through the video. Make sure you
Thanks,
check
Sour.
out the the final one later, so you can see the final battle in the last couple scenes. They're pretty fun. And so this one is Omen Prophecy. This one is set up to be like the villain's theme.
In case it wasn't obvious with the music.
In case it wasn't obvious with the music. So I told Wazy this is kind of like the lead up to the final fight. And I wanted it to be kind of dedicated to the main antagonist, Rival, which we've seen up to this point, and let her just kind of script out the scene however she wanted. For the song itself, I wanted to go for something that was pretty kind of oppressive and ominous. It had a lot of strings and some timpani. It makes it sound, like if it wasn't the scene we saw here, it would be what you hear as you're walking through the final screens before you get to the final fight. And it was interesting to try and write for something like that, and I'm glad it turned out. Now, I will say before I hand it over to Wazy to talk about the animation, because people are probably going to ask, did I know that I was going to be the antagonist? No, and I did not ask Wazy to do that. I had kind of an inkling this is what she was going to do after Rivals Clash, because I hadn't, established that I'm in the party, and I'm not in any of the other story things so far. And she can talk a little bit about where that idea came from, but it's kind of subtly hinted. The Rivals character's color palette is very similar to my model's color palette, and you don't see the hair up until now, but there's a little bit of nods here and there in the outfit. But I think it was a neat touch having my character be the main antagonist, and we'll see how that plays out in the scene after that. But Wazy, you want to talk about kind of what went into this scene, because you did this one kind of from the ground up. I didn't give you any sort of pointers on this one.
Yeah, this one, like I said, like as soon as Raku made it evident he wasn't part of the party, my brain was kind of like, well, then that's our bad guy right there. It's us versus Raku. Like, he's the one that made the beats, so it's us versus Raku. So I tried really hard to be subtle with Rival. But it's very hard, especially because I'm not very good at character design. I will mention this next part. I did get help from Pwups, as you did see some things in the mirror. I got some design help from Pwups to kind of guide me in the right direction. This scene was just basically how the Rival himself is getting power and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I really enjoyed this scene because I didn't want him moving around too much, but I like the fact that he's got some dark evil going on. So, and we all know purple is the color of evil, so that's why the drapes are purple. But I wanted some kind of foreshadowing to what's going to happen, so that's why the mirror is there. So yeah, that was kind of the inspiration for this scene, and then to because the way Raku set it up is every single song he has, kind of, with the exception of the first one, kind of stops in the middle and resets. So I kind of wanted to show that difference in between the two. Like, that's why I always try to make like subtle differences in between the first round and the loop. So that's why he kind of takes off his hood and it's like, oh no, it was Raku all along. So yeah,
It was Raku.
That was a
It
nice
Raku,
touch.
like a Scooby-Doo villain, you know.
Yeah, you can see the hair kind of poking out of the hood, and then when it comes off in the second half, you're like, oh, yep.
And like the thematically overall, like the thing that streams out to me for this is Golbez's theme from Final Fantasy IV,
Oh, okay.
where it has a like very low, almost slow word beat, and it's like you know something that is big and bad is coming, and it's one of those things that you can't stop and that you will inevitably have to face. Like,
Yeah,
it's
ominous.
because that evokes that vibe really well.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for this one. This particular track, I think, was elsewhere in the release until we were structuring things, and I was like, it would work better as a villain intro theme, because I think I had it as more of like an interlude to something that happens near the middle. But I figured it makes more sense to have this lead up to the final fight. And again, the way Wazy set it up is great. I again left it up to her to come up with the design. I will say one idea that I just had as we were looking at this that would have been a really funny kind of meta nod for the crystal that's on like the altar there that is glowing, Wazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been kind of funny if that crystal was shaped like the bits icon from Twitch.
Oh yeah, that would have been funny. Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
even think of that.
Me neither. I was watching. I was like, oh, that it's kind of similar, but no, having a thing kind of just resonating, and then the last thing that rival does makes it start like really kind of shaking all around, and then it kind of explodes into the next scene that we're gonna see. And so yeah, this one had a lot of neat touches for such a simple scene, and it's gonna set up the final battle. And so let us go ahead and proceed. There's two scenes left. This next one is the big one. Okay. So that was the Astral Tyrant. This is the final battle theme and scene. Kind of a lot to say on this one. This was another song that I had to record more than once because the first one had audio issues. But overall, it's meant to be kind of like an aggressive final battle-ish type song. I could have put more into it as far as other instruments, but I didn't want it to be kind of too cluttered and chaotic. But for the scene itself, a couple things that I wanted to throw in, and then I think I'll let Wazy handle the kind of overview since there's a lot. There's a lot going on in this scene. I had to watch this one like 3 times to see everything she did. So first off, we have, this is the second half, but in the first half we have the actual final boss form of Rival, who's become the Astral Tyrant. And I will say, between Wazy and Pwups in the design, I think it's great. It's very final bossy. Nothing says final boss like a man bun. I don't know if that was intentional, but I can get behind that. And then like a long kind of rat tailish type of thing is coming off. So this character has ungodly long hair in this form because it's tied up at the top and is long enough to reach down to like his butt.
Oh yeah.
He's got that evil guy hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like how in the second more monstery form, the blonde highlights show up on the hair. The one detail Wazy remembers that no one else remembers, not even me.
I know, it pisses me off. Nobody else remembers that you have like the weird blonde part to your hair, but I do.
I
frosted
appreciate
tips.
it. That's right. It's just like the 90s. I also like the runic symbol behind Tyrant and how it changes. It's kind of like a regular circle, and then after the white in the second form, then it becomes like this more sharp runic design. Again, I gave Wazy no indication of what I wanted for the Tyrant's final form, and I just said, Monster Man. And I know she asked Pwups for some ideas on rough concepting out what this looked like, and then Wazy turned it into what you see here. But between the design of the villain and then this sort of like space backdrop, again, astral tyrant, so kind of like an astral plane hellscape, is very fitting. And I know this one was a lot of work, but I think it turned out extremely well. And so,
Yeah.
Wazy, go ahead
There was-
and break down what you want for this one, because there's a lot. There's a lot here.
There's a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one because I'm really proud of this one. So first of all, yes, Pwups designed the first iteration of Astral Tyrant, and it was literally like in bold letters was titties out. Was on like the, because I was like, Pwups, imagine, because I didn't tell Pwups what we were doing, but I was like, Pwups, imagine if Raku was an evil JRPG villain. What do you think he'd look like? And Pwups sketched me up. It looked pretty much like this, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. It didn't have the runes behind it, but I was like, no, that's good. I got this. So I took it, and I made that, and I was like, this looks so good. But then Matt came in while I was working one day, and I was like, what do you think of evil Raku? And he's like, he doesn't look menacing enough. And I was like, you know what? You're right. The way I draw doesn't give enough credence to him. I'm gonna give him a second form. Because every good boss fight has a second form, and also a really good boss fight has a full heal.
Yeah, that full heal. I saw that in the animation. I'm like, oh, I know that horse shit.
Yeah, so I gave him a full heal. I gave him a form change. The second form change, I gave him more like beastly elements. I gave him some wings on his elbow, and I really changed the rune,
Hooves.
and I broke one of his horns and stuff and gave him hoofs. And yeah, I played around with it a little bit. I didn't want to like ruin the design of that Pwups had too much, just because it was a really good design. I just made like the crystal in his chest bigger, and then made him cracked in the final version because he's taken some damage too. The idea behind it is that crystal he was fucking with is now inside his chest.
I just noticed that
So-
detail when I watched it this last time.
Yeah, so that was kind of the idea with it. And if you notice, when he gets hit, that crystal goes red, especially in his final form. It goes red for a split half second whenever he gets hit. So there's that, and then there's of course everybody's attacks. When we were talking about Pwups being a summoner, it was like Raku was like, "Oh, you can use Tenpo, the little mascot guy, for Pwups' summon," and I was like, thinking, I was like, I already want to use him in Astral Library. I don't know if that's going to work because that's more of a U element than it is Pwups. So I gave Pwups a bigger slime, but I put their horns and tail on it. because I just thought that would be cute.
It is
Um,
really cute.
Yeah,
yeah.
it looks
So
like a big kind of like horn steam bun
yeah.
that's attacking.
Um.
That'd be a perfect piece of merch, like a plush.
Oh yeah. Just a
Stay
big
tuned for
circle.
the Lost Kingdom merch line.
Um. And then Ramen's is again. It's he's got the magical doot. So he's got a very he just doots and you get hurt. That's the thought. And then Bits's we've already seen Bits's attack, but Bits's special attack is basically like a big vine spear that just
Mm-hmm.
comes out of the ground and stabs you. Um Froggy's just got two magic attacks. They're pretty basic, but again, my idea was Froggy's always the healer. He's the support character of it. Um, but he does do some cool things in this, like of course makes Matt's speed go up. And if you actually look in the animation, Matt's speed does increase
Yeah, in
Yeah, I
double
when
noticed
time.
he
that.
does the speed
He
up.
goes. He's like,
Yeah.
He's zooming.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
Macro burr.
Wazy's special is her axe goes fire and she hits with it. And then Matt, knowing him in Final Fantasy 14, Matt plays a dragoon. So that's why I gave him the jump up and go down with a single spike instead. Um, basically the idea of a dragoon for him.
I do live that Dragoon life. That is my favorite class in any Final Fantasy.
So that was kind of the idea of that. And then the other thing I just quickly wanted to touch on was the damage that
Yep.
everybody sustains. And when Raku does that mid card wipe and does his basically, I was calling it his Zeta flare when I was animating it. And it's called in the files, it's called the Zeta flare. When he does that Zeta flare and it comes back, everybody is damaged. And Froggy is, of course, the least damaged, but everybody has damage. Pwups actually doesn't have any damage, but their summon
Yeah.
has damage.
yeah, I noticed that. He's got a
Because
little boo boo.
yeah, because I was like, you know what? Pwups isn't even fighting. Pwups is just like, hey, yo, go hit him. Hey, yo, go bite him.
Get him.
So,
Get him.
so I was like, well, it makes more sense for Pwups's summon to get the damage in that one. So it was really fun to then take everybody and then make them doing the same attacks, but have them damaged while doing it. And so, yeah, this one was a really fun scene. And then basically the finale is Froggy casts I can't remember if it's speed up or whatever it is.
Haste.
Yeah, basically Froggy casts haste and everybody gets to do their special attack all at once. Which
that's the
takes out
final
the
blow.
Astral Tyrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna have like an anime scene cut in, but then I was like, that doesn't really fit for an old JRPG, and that's the only reason I cut it, is because I was thinking like thematically, that's not how JRPGs work. It is now, like now in Persona, yeah, you'll see character cut-ins. But
yeah.
with the older vibe that we were going with this, I was like, no, that wouldn't happen. So that's kind of why I took that part out. But other than that, this one was fun to work on. It was a bitch just because it took me so long, but I really like the end product. It was worth it. This one was a struggle that was worth it.
I forgot. I was gonna mention that I just turned on Snake's swear timer. It's okay.
Thanks, buddy.
No problem.
Yeah, and I know design wise, like for the Astral Tyrant, like the one thing that it really speaks to me of is, and I know this is something that Wazy was saying, like when she first showed me the when she first showed me the design and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" I saw that her design kind of inspiration of that was he said Sephiroth vibe. Yeah, it's safer Sephiroth. Like the final, the second to last phase of the Sephiroth fight in FF7 was that's the vibe that I get from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it, and fortunately, she didn't give me one giant angel wing, so I don't have to worry about getting sued.
I thought about it.
Did you?
Yeah, I messaged Pwups and I was like, "What do you think about a wing?" Like we tossed it back and forth a bit. But yeah, that's why you got wings on your elbows, is because I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but no, yeah, this one turned out really well. It's a lot to it, but I think it comes together pretty well. The only thing I didn't really think about requesting this because the way you set up the end I think is perfect. The only thing I would have changed is when the tyrant dies, like he kind of fragments and explodes, right? The only
Yeah.
thing I would have done differently would have been to make that like a slow dissolve, like in the old FF games. Matt probably knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Where you
yeah.
have the screen flash, and then it's like as the
Oh
boss
yeah.
dissolves, but it wasn't a deal breaker to me. To having
Yeah.
everyone like land the final blow with their ultimate attacks and then he shatters, I think is pretty appropriate. We've got a hydrate from Ace.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ace.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we are at
Last one.
the last one, the final scene. So let's go take a look. All right. And with that, that is the end of The Lost Kingdom. The last track on there, Lost to Time, is meant to be kind of like an epilogue, like a credits theme, is kind of what Wazy and I discussed back and forth. It's kind of simple. It's meant to be something you're hearing as the credits roll, so there's not like a lot of distracting instruments and percussion. It's a bit more mellow, almost kind of melancholy-ish as it closes out. But
I was gonna say it has like that really melancholy feel where it's like you won, but did you really kind of like vibe for a epilogue?
a little bit. I think what I'll probably do next time I do one of these projects is have more of a triumphant ending theme. I didn't really know how to write one when I was working on this. And so tonally, like the story in my head is not supposed to end on like kind of like a downer note. It's just kind of meant to be a little bit more subdued at the end. But that's definitely one thing I would do as far as a closing theme. you'd have kind of more like a victory credits wrap. So I'll have to think about that for whatever I end up doing as like a potential sequel project. I don't want to say guaranteed because that's still a long ways away. Snake says, in the sequel, everyone turns out to be a bad guy. Duh.
Da-na, da-na, da-na.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I'll turn it over to Wazi to kind of talk through the process on the credits because we had a lot of discussions about how to do it, and she had a couple different ideas before we arrived on what you see in the last scene.
I
Go for
was
it,
gonna
Wazi.
do, yeah, I was gonna do like an epilogue where it was like you see a static picture of each character kind of like having a good time after they have beaten the bad guy kind of thing. But like in my head, the the way the music was, I was like, that's not really the vibe I'm getting from it. So I just kind of liked the idea of the characters walking along, and it just kind of reveals who they are as it kind of goes along. So I don't know. I thought it was neat, and I already had walking animations for most of the cast, so it's kind of fun. I couldn't not put the castle in the background because that's my favorite background,
Yep.
so I had to have that.
You should
But
have
it was
included
rock.
a character credit for the castle. Been
I should have.
best supporting character
The
castle.
castle. And then it was Raku who suggested switching midway through for the actual music and animation credits going to me and him. Should switch to the Astral Tyrant's background. So I did that, and I put the tyrant there, the final form of the tyrant, because I really wanted to showcase that because I'm really proud of how the tyrant looks and everything like that. So
Can I call you out on one thing, Wazi?
yeah, I was gonna announce it, but go
Okay.
right ahead.
How about you explain your transgressions then?
Okay, so I finished it up. I was really proud of it. I did it on time. I got it to him before January 1st, and I sent it to him. I was really proud of myself. I was like, there, Raku, it's done, it's over. He
I'm
goes,
free.
yeah, I'm like, I'm free, I'm done. He goes, well, Bits' name shows up before Bits actually walks across screen. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, that's an easy fix. I can fix that. The animation's already done. I just need to go in and delete something. And then Raku continues watching it. And he sends me a message and he's like, we've been friends for a while. How do you not know how to spell my name? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I looked and I had put his credits as Raku PBM.
No,
And
BMP.
yeah, BMP. And if you're wondering, this is not the first time I have put BMP. I have put it like that before, but I was so confident I spelled it right this time, and I didn't, and I fucked it up. So yeah, I fucked up Raku's credits.
I'm sure it won't be the last time. And then I think your immediate response when I sent you that in Discord, what you said was, "Have you considered changing your name to BMP?"
Yeah, because it would be easier for me. It's the same with Banani. Like I'm like Banani, can you just change the way your character looks so that way I always draw it right?
And I said, "I'm docking your pay."
Yeah. So
So rude. She can't spell. How could you do this to her?
Well, if it was all for funsies and whatnot, then it would be no big deal. But it was a job. It was a professional job.
it was a job, and I think I did a good job.
Yeah, and so
You
as
did.
kind of a wrap
I
up,
think I think I get one big high five.
I will say across the entire project from start to finish, Wazi worked her rear off. I told her that we weren't under a time crunch, but I had a rough idea of when I wanted to get this thing out to everybody and released. And she came in ahead of the deadline, despite, losing a day's worth of work on Ruffians and stuff on her other projects and the holidays and everything else. And so I really do appreciate her working through and being a
Said I'd get it
collaborator.
done by January, and I got it done by January despite burning myself on Christmas.
Oh.
Yeah, I fucking succeeded.
And so, yeah, again, good work all around. Thanks to Pwups for coming in and helping with the concept stuff on Tyrant. I had gotten some hints from Wazy that there was some outside assistance, and I said, okay, I'm definitely interested to see what that looks like. I kind of pictured the final boss would be like me in a G string or something, because Wazy would totally do something like
Oh
that.
no.
And it's
No.
just me like, or in like the carnival outfit from God Hand, just gyrating at the party. But no, like again, the results were fantastic. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Again, this is kind of a long session of looking through stuff, but the whole project I think was a success, and I would definitely do it again.
Yay!
Yay!
And so one last thing, just because I feel like it's worth mentioning for all the stuff that I release, the audio is already on streaming platforms and Bandcamp, and it'll be in the description of the YouTube video too. But just for folks who are tuning in here that may not have heard me say this, as far as what you can do with my work. So I do these BGM projects to create assets to use in content for other people out there that are YouTubers, streamers, whatnot. And so if you want to use my songs in your content, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to ask permission or anything like that. I would only ask that if you make a YouTube video or you include it in stream or something, just put a mention somewhere that I made the music. But other than that, I don't have DMCA or copyright stuff set up for any of my stuff. And if you ever see claims, make sure you let me know, because they're usually bogus. I will let people know if something I create is not for just free use, but I haven't done that with anything yet, and I definitely wouldn't for these BGM projects. And so, before we wrap up, any final thoughts from the folks on the call? Thanks for tuning in and watching this in real time.
I'd say good job. Y'all did amazing. Clearly put your whole ass into this. Like your
We
entire ass
Put our
right into
whole
this.
pussies in this.
Yes. You guys did such a good job.
Well, thank you.
Fantastic work.
I
Yeah,
definitely want to make sure Froggy and Ramen get a chance to see this. So I think I'll post in our group Discord once I put the YouTube video up, and then people can go watch it. I know Froggy and Banani, their anniversaries this weekend, so they're out doing anniversary stuff.
I mean, that's fair. And all I could say is now I want to go play some old school JRPGs again.
It does
'Cause-
kind of have that vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has just that right vibe where I'm just like, well, now I need to like, I need to get that. I need to scratch that itch now. So thanks for that.
Well, I was telling Wazy after we launched the project and put it out, we should crowdfund an actual video game based on the whole story.
Honestly, I was thinking that the entire time. I was like, this would make a good video game.
Well, if anybody, and maybe Wazy can mention this at some point too, because her community is pretty diverse as well. If anyone out in the Toxic community knows how to use RPG Maker and be interested in doing like a fan game based on the Lost Kingdom, that could definitely be something I would be interested in being part of that. I don't know about you, Wazy.
If I don't have to work, yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to make a game. So it's a time-consuming process.
Yeah, I don't know how to code, so that's definitely outside my realm of knowledge, but you never know.
Never know.
You never know.
All right, before we wrap up, let me see who is online to raid. Come on, cursor. I can stop broadcasting to
Oh,
Discord.
I do have a question for you. When is this the YouTube video gonna be unprivated?
Like right after I stop streaming. Since I'm
Okay,
already
cool.
I'm already in here, I just have
Go
to
ahead.
change the setting. So what I'll do
You
is
can
I'll
watch it now. Right now. Chat. You can watch it right now.
We'll watch it.
Go to youtube.com/rocketbpm.youtube/tv.com.
I'm pretty sure it's /, but yeah, other than that, yeah, go for it.
yeah.
/Raku BPM /.
Feel free to share and send it around to people. Again, getting the assets out there for other people who want to use it is also important too. I usually don't plug a lot of my stuff because I don't like doing that, but feel free. But yeah, it'll be public as soon as I get off stream. Let's see.
Roku.com.
I should just hire Wazy to be my marketing department. We can go raid Takashi Sotodate. He's playing Saga 2. I don't know what that is. But let's see. We'll go ahead and set that up. And we can go to outro in the meantime.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Don't forget to pet your animal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an animal, pet yourself on the head.
You're the animal now.
You are the animal.
The animal you have become.
But yeah, I'm just getting stuff set up while you guys are talking. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and hanging out, everyone. This was it was great to see this project finally out, and I can work on the next one. But until then, have yourselves a good evening, and we'll be back tomorrow with the jam stream. Yeah, take it easy, folks. Catch you later.
Bye, everybody.